Hi, quick hello. This is an original Tales First story about a family crossing a line and realizing someone won't just take it. Let's begin.
Your daughter is not invited to my birthday, my mom said during family dinner. My 12-year-old just sat there, frozen, while everyone acted like it was normal. So I didn't go either. Instead, I sent her this gift. She opened it and went pale. Dad whispered, "What did you do?" The thing about family dinners is that they are never just dinners. They are auditions. They are negotiations. They are a group project where one person does all the work, 3 people take credit, and someone inevitably spills something that stains forever. We were at my parents' place, 3 days before Mom's big birthday. The big one. The one that comes with dramatic phrases like milestone and celebration of life, and I cannot believe you are doing this to me on my birthday, even though it is not her birthday yet. The dining table looked like it had been staged by a magazine called People Who Have Never Met Children. Candles, cloth napkins, a centerpiece that was definitely not meant to survive a family gathering. Mom sat at the head like a queen who had been told her kingdom was cozy. Dad hovered with the energy of a man trying to keep the peace by blending into the wallpaper. Across from us sat my sister, Katie, like she belonged there more than the furniture did. Her husband, Nick, was beside her, smiling politely the way you smile when you are trapped in a conversation about wallpaper. Their kids were sprawled around the table in a way that suggested they had never heard the word posture, and honestly, good for them. Elliot, the oldest, was 13 and already had that teenage ability to look both bored and insulted at the same time. Ruby, 9, had bright eyes and a habit of listening to everything. Nico, 5, was doing the kind of quiet chaos that adults always underestimate until the moment they realize something is missing, and it is important. My husband Ben sat beside me, calm as always. Ben is the kind of man who thinks there is a peaceful way through most situations. He believes in deep breaths and gentle communication. I believe in evidence. Mom was talking about the party. Of course she was. "The venue is perfect," she said, leaning back like the venue had been chosen by a committee of experts, and not by her looking at pictures online until she found one that matched her imagination. "The cake is going to be elegant. None of that childish nonsense." Katie laughed. "Mom, it's your birthday. You can have whatever you want." I chewed my food and tried to stay neutral. Neutral is a skill I learned early. It is like sitting on a chair with one missing leg, but pretending you are comfortable. Sienna, my daughter, sat across from me. 12 years old, soft-hearted, observant. The kind of kid who notices when adults are pretending. She had been quiet all dinner, picking at her food the way kids do when they are both hungry and unsure if it is safe to be joyful. Then Mom mentioned decorations and dress code, and Sienna finally perked up. She leaned forward just a little and said, "What should I wear?" It was innocent, sweet even, the kind of question that says I want to belong. I want to show up correctly. Tell me what the rules are. I smiled at her. "Something you feel good in," I said. "We'll figure it out." Mom didn't even look at Sienna. She took a sip of water like she was preparing for something small and pleasant. Then she said, in the same tone you used to mention that you switched laundry detergent, "Oh, your daughter is not invited to my birthday." The words sat on the table with us. Sienna's face changed so quickly it was like watching a light go out. Frozen. That is the right word. Not crying, not angry, just stopped. Everyone else kept moving like nothing had happened. Forks scraped plates. Katie glanced at her kids like she was mentally assigning them roles for the birthday photos. Dad cleared his throat and did not say anything that mattered. Ben's hand tightened slightly on his fork. I blinked once, very slowly, as if maybe I had misheard. as if perhaps Mom had said your daughter is not invited to my birthday dinner, but of course we were at the dinner, so that would be nonsense. What do you mean? I asked. My voice sounded too calm, which is always a sign I am about to become unreasonable. Mom smiled. Not a real smile, the kind that belongs on a greeting card. I just thought it should be adults only, she said. It's my special day. She won't fit in. Sienna stared at her plate. She did not move. She did not speak. Adults only. I glanced at the other side of the table. So, I said carefully, Katie's kids aren't coming either? Mom waved a hand, like I was being silly. Oh no, we had to make an exception for them. Katie's eyebrows lifted in a way that said yes, obviously. Why? I asked. Mom tilted her head. You'll understand. They're different. Different. The word people use when they do not want to say favored out loud. So the rule is adults only, I said. But there are exceptions. Mom nodded, satisfied, like she had explained a complicated math problem. And Sienna is not an exception, I said. Mom sighed. Nora, don't make this a thing. A thing? Right. Sienna stared down at her plate as if staring hard enough could change the conversation. I looked around the table. Dad avoided my eyes. Nick stared at his water like it held the meaning of life. Ben stayed quiet, because Ben does not challenge my parents in front of my parents. He is many things, but he is not careless. Katie said, It's just a party, Nora. Just a party. Sienna was just sitting here silently. She didn't argue. She did the saddest thing kids do, which is accept it. I felt something in me go cold. I set my fork down gently. We're leaving, I said. Mom's head snapped up. Excuse me? I'm not sitting here pretending this is normal, I said. My voice was still calm. Calm is not always kind. If my daughter isn't welcome, neither are we. Mom rolled her eyes like a teenager. You are being dramatic. Dad finally spoke, quiet and useless. Nora. Ben stood with me, silent, loyal. That mattered. Sienna pushed her chair back, moving like she had been given permission to breathe. I didn't wait for anyone's approval. I didn't argue. I didn't deliver a speech. I just gathered my daughter and walked out. Behind us, Mom muttered something that landed like a familiar slap. Drama queen, as always. In the car, the silence had weight. Ben started the engine. His hands stayed steady on the wheel. He didn't look at me like I was wrong. He didn't look at me like I was right. He looked at the road like the road was the only safe thing. Sienna stared out the window. Halfway home, Ben finally spoke, softly, the way you speak when you are trying to keep a bridge from collapsing. Maybe. She really is doing adults only, he said. Maybe it's just a rule. I laughed once, short and humorless. It's not a rule if it only applies to us, I said. There were exceptions for them. Not for our kid. Ben exhaled. He understood. He always does, eventually. Sienna's voice came from the back seat, small and careful. Does Grandma love my cousins more than me? There are questions you can answer. There are questions you want to answer. And then there are questions that make you grip the steering wheel of your life and realize you are responsible for what happens next. I turned slightly in my seat, just enough to see her face. Sienna was doing that brave kid thing again, trying to hold it together because she didn't want to make it worse. My chest hurt. I wanted to tell her Grandma loves everyone equally. I wanted to tell her it was a misunderstanding. I wanted to tell her none of it mattered. But I could not lie to my child's face, not about something she already knew in her bones. So I said the only honest thing I could say without breaking her. I love you. I told her. And I am not going to let anyone make you feel like you don't belong. Sienna nodded, as if she had been waiting for that exact sentence. When we got home, I tucked her into bed earlier than usual, not because she was tired, but because the day had taken something from her. Then I sat in my kitchen, staring at nothing, while the anger gathered itself into something sharper. Mom's birthday was in 3 days. I wasn't going, but I wasn't ignoring it either. Instead, I sent her a gift, and when she opened it, she went pale. Dad whispered, "What did you do?" People like to say, "That's just how she is," about mothers like mine. It is usually said with a shrug, like a personality flaw is an unchangeable law of nature, like favoritism is weather. But I grew up in that house. I know the difference between a storm and someone deliberately choosing who gets wet. Katie is 2 years younger than me. 2 years. That is the gap between I can pour my own cereal and I will still pour the cereal and complain about it. But in our family, those 2 years were treated like a full generation whenever it was convenient. When I was 9, Katie was 7, which meant she was just a baby. When I was 13, Katie was 11, which meant she was too sensitive. When I was 16, Katie was 14, which meant don't be hard on her. And when I became an adult, it meant you can handle it. There was always a rule in my childhood. Rules were Mom's favorite tool. They looked fair from the outside. They sounded reasonable. They gave her the comfort of being right. The only problem was that rules were mostly for me. One of the clearest examples happened at Katie's 8th birthday party. Mom had taped a hand-lettered sign by the living room doorway. Nothing fancy, just authoritative enough to end arguments. "Party games for kids up to 10, it said. I had turned 10 barely 2 months earlier. 2 months. I was still a kid. I still wanted to play. Before the first game started, Mom pulled me aside, voice gentle like this was for my own good. "You're too old to participate," she said. "You won't fit in." I blinked. "Mom, I just turned 10. Mom smiled. "Rules are rules." Then she handed me a stack of paper plates. "You can help." Not later. Not for 5 minutes. Help. So I worked the party, balloons, drinks, wiping spills, while the kids played. And then I saw Mark and Tessa in the game circle. Mark was 11. Tessa was 10 and a half, already taller than most of the boys. They were Mom's friend Linda's kids, invited, included, laughing like the sign didn't apply to them. I stared at the sign, then at them, trying to figure out what I'd missed. I leaned in and whispered, "Aren't they older than the age limit?" Mom didn't even hesitate. "Oh, they're a special case." Special case. Of course. I watched them play, watched them be included, and I realized something small and sharp. Rules were rules, until she decided they weren't. That pattern didn't stop with birthday parties. It moved with us. When I had a school award, Mom would sigh and say, "We can't all go. It's too much. Don't make a big deal." But when Katie had a similar event, suddenly schedules opened up like magic. Suddenly there were photos and special dinners and relatives invited. I learned how to celebrate quietly. I learned how to keep my excitement inside my own skin. I learned how to look grateful for scraps. By the time I became a mother, I told myself I was over it. Then Katie had kids, and I realized the whole system had simply found new players. Katie and Nick had 3 children, Elliot, Ruby, and Nico. Ben and I had one, Sienna. Sienna is bright and funny and kind in a way that makes you want to be better around her. She is also the kind of child who feels things deeply, even when she doesn't show it. At family gatherings, the cousins were treated like a set. The default grandchildren. The ones who belonged. Elliot, Ruby, and Nico got movie nights and outings and sleepovers. Sometimes Sienna was included. Sometimes. And when she was, it often felt like she was visiting someone else's world, like she was a guest in her own family. If I asked why she wasn't invited, Mom would say, "They're siblings. Of course they do things together." As if Sienna being a cousin meant she was automatically less connected. As if my daughter being my daughter meant she was somehow optional. Sienna never complained outright. She pretended she didn't care. I did not pretend. I watched her come home quieter. I watched her hesitate before asking if she was invited. I watched her learn to expect less. Then came the money. At some point, my parents started needing help. It began the usual way: one bill, one repair, one tight month. Mom framed it like fairness. "Both of you contribute equally," she said, meaning Katie and me. "It's only right." So I agreed, because I'd been trained to be reasonable. Then the exception showed up, right on schedule. Katie couldn't do equal because she had 3 kids. Money was tight. Life was hard. Mom said it like it was gravity. And me? I had 1 child, which apparently meant I had extra. Without anyone ever naming it, the numbers shifted. Katie's share shrank. Mine grew. And eventually, I was covering most of it. Then my parents' mortgage became a problem. Mom swore it was temporary, just until they got back on their feet, so I agreed to pay half. That temporary half lasted 5 years. And when Mom's milestone birthday approached, they opened a shared account for party expenses. Communal, fair, practical. Most of the money in it was mine. Katie and Mom planned everything, picked everything, booked everything. And they used the card linked to that account like it was simply there for them, like my role was funding, not family. I kept telling myself it wasn't worth a fight. Then Sienna asked what to wear, and Mom told her she wasn't invited. That's when I stopped making excuses. That's when I decided the pattern ends here. The morning after family dinner, I woke up with a strange sensation. Peace. Not the gentle kind. Not the soft kind. The kind that comes when you finally decide something and the endless mental arguing stops. Ben was making coffee. He glanced at me the way he always does when he knows something is coming. I said it simply. "We're not going." He paused. "Not going where?" "My mom's birthday," I said. "None of us." Ben didn't argue. Not immediately. He set the mug down slowly, like it might crack the counter if he moved too fast. "Are you sure?" he asked. "It's your mom's big birthday." I nodded. "If Sienna isn't welcome, neither are we." Sienna came in rubbing her eyes, hair a mess, still wearing yesterday's sadness in the way she moved. I told her, "We're not going." Her shoulders dropped like she'd been holding her breath for 24 hours. "Oh," she said quietly, then smaller. "Okay." Relief looks different on kids. It doesn't always look like happiness. Sometimes it looks like your body finally unclenching. I watched her and felt my resolve harden. Then I opened my banking app. I did not cry. I did not rant. I did not draft imaginary speeches. I acted. First, the standing order labeled mortgage help. 950 euros a month. Cancelled. Second, family support. 300 euros a month. Cancelled. Third, utilities top up. 120 euros a month. Cancelled. Click, click, click. It was almost ridiculous how easy it was. 5 years of pressure and obligation undone in 30 seconds and a biometric scan. I stared at the screen for a moment and thought, this is why they liked the arrangement. It required nothing from them except my compliance. Then I dealt with the party account. There was a virtual card connected to it, a convenient little tool, shared in the sense that everyone benefited from it, and I carried the responsibility. Some charges had already gone through. Deposits, initial payments. but the big ones were still coming. The kind that land right before an event when vendors finalize totals and venues take their cut. Mom had assumed that card would keep working. She had assumed, as always, that my role was to fund and endure. I froze the card. Blocked. Disabled. However the app wanted to phrase it, the result was the same. Any attempt to charge it would fail. Then I opened the shared account balance. 4,800 euros. My contributions? 4,200. I transferred my money back to myself. Not dramatically. Not with a note. Not with a warning. Just quietly. Like taking back something that was mine. If my daughter wasn't welcome, my money wasn't welcome either. Now came the gift. I bought a simple box, wrapped it neatly. Nothing flashy, nothing that screamed, "I am about to ruin your party." Inside, I placed a letter. The letter was the real gift, the kind you remember. I wrote it carefully, not in anger, not with insults, just with the truth, stated plainly, like a boundary you can't pretend you didn't hear. This is what I wrote. Mom, I've spent years making excuses for you. I told myself it wasn't favoritism. I told myself I was imagining it. I told myself it was easier to stay quiet. But you crossed a line you can't uncross when you excluded my daughter from your birthday while inviting your other grandchildren. You said it sweetly, like it was nothing, like she wouldn't understand. She understood. I watched her go still at that dinner table. I watched her try not to cry. I am a mother first. My job is to protect my child, and I will not keep bringing her into rooms where she is treated like she matters less. From today, we will not be attending your birthday. We will not be coming to family events, and we will not be continuing contact. Do not call me. Do not text me. Do not ask other people to pass messages. And because there will be no relationship, there will be no financial support. I am withdrawing all support effective immediately. I hope you have the life you built. Goodbye. I folded the letter once, then again, and slid it into the box like it belonged there. Now I needed it delivered. I chose the simplest method, the one that couldn't be accidentally forgotten. I mailed it, timed so it would arrive on the day of the party, so it would be opened when gifts were opened, so it would land in the exact moment Mom expected applause. Then I waited. On the day of the party, our house was strangely quiet. Ben took Sienna out for ice cream, not as a reward, not as a distraction, just as a small statement. We are allowed to have a nice day. I stayed home. My phone sat on the counter like a sleeping animal. I did not have to wait long. The first call came mid-afternoon. Mom's name lit up my screen. I let it ring twice before I answered, because I am still me. "Hello," I said. Her voice exploded out of the speaker. "How dare you!" she shouted. "How dare you do this to me on my birthday?" I did not respond. Silence is a powerful thing when someone is expecting you to scramble. Then she said, louder, as if volume could turn reality into her preferred story. "I opened your present," she hissed, "in front of everyone." Of course she did. She had probably smiled, held it up, made a little speech about how her daughter couldn't come but still loved her. She had probably expected something sentimental, something that made her look cherished. Instead, she got my letter. In the background, I heard voices, guests, movement, a clink of glass. Then, quieter, close to the phone, Dad's voice. "What did you do?" It was not directed at me. It was directed at her, like he was staring at the blast radius and trying to identify the source. Mom continued, outraged. "You embarrassed me. You humiliated me in front of my guests." I didn't read it out loud, I said calmly. She made a sound that could have been a gasp or a growl. Then something shifted. Her fury tangled with panic. "And what is this nonsense about money?" she snapped. "Vendors are calling. The card isn't working. The account is empty. What have you done? I leaned against the counter. My voice stayed steady. I withdrew my financial support, I said. Effective immediately. You can't, she said, as if she were declaring a law. We need that. I almost laughed. The audacity was so familiar it was practically a family heirloom. You excluded my child, I said. You don't get access to her, and you don't get access to my wallet. Mom sputtered. It was adults only. And yet Elliot and Ruby and Nico are there, I said. Interesting rule. She tried to talk over me. They're different. They're family. I felt my jaw tighten. Sienna is family, I said. Or she was supposed to be. Dad's voice again, low, urgent. Nora. I could picture him, standing behind her, trying to calm her down, trying to make this go away. A man who spent his whole life managing her moods and calling it peace. Mom's voice sharpened. So that's it? You're cutting us off? You're going to abandon your own mother? I'm protecting my child, I said. You're selfish, she spat. I breathed in slowly. This is my boundary, I said. Do not call me again. Then I ended the call. Click. The silence afterward was so complete it felt unreal. And yet, for the first time in a long time, the silence did not feel like loneliness. It felt like space. The smear campaign started before my phone had even cooled down. That might sound dramatic, but when you have a family like mine, speed is part of the strategy. They don't let the story settle. They don't let the truth breathe. They fill the air fast with their version. By the next morning, my phone was buzzing like it had a job. Aunt, cousin, family friend I hadn't spoken to in 3 years, someone who once borrowed my casserole dish and never returned it. I answered the first few out of habit. What did you do? A distant relative demanded, not as a question but as an accusation. How could you do that to your mother? Another voice scolded. You only get one mom, someone said, like that was a coupon I was required to redeem. By the third call, I stopped playing along. This is private, I said. I'm not discussing it. Some people huffed and hung up. Some people tried again. But she's your mother. Yes, I said, and this is still private. A few people, the ones I actually cared about, asked differently. They didn't lead with judgment. They led with concern. Nora, one of my cousins said quietly. What happened? So I told her. Not the whole history, not the childhood, not the years of swallowing, just the facts. I've been financially supporting them for years, I said, and they uninvited Sienna from the birthday while inviting the other grandkids. They called it adults only. It wasn't adults only. There was a pause on the line. Then softly, that's not okay. It was strange, hearing someone else say it like a simple truth. Not a debate, not a drama, just reality. A few more close people heard the same summary and reacted the same way. Shock first, then clarity, and then, as if my parents were determined to prove my point. The next escalation arrived in the mail. A bill. A real one. Printed letterhead, payment terms, the whole thing. 2,360 euros for the birthday venue's final balance, due in 5 days. Line items and all. Room rental, staffing, bar deposit, late add guest count. And under responsible party/billing contact, my name, my phone number, my email. I stared at it for a full minute, waiting for it to become less absurd. It didn't. So I called the number on the invoice. Calm, polite, and very, very clear. I did not sign this, I told the vendor. I did not authorize this. I am not paying this. The person on the other end sounded tired, which I understood. Everyone is tired. Your name is on the contract, she said. Then someone put it there. I replied. Without my consent. You need to pursue the actual organizer or signatory. There was another pause, the kind where paperwork shifts. I'll make a note, she said. Please do, I said, and please remove my contact information from this account. When I ended the call, I felt a grim sort of satisfaction. Not joy, not victory, just the feeling of finally refusing to carry someone else's choices. That afternoon, the knocking started. Not a polite tap, not a normal hello. Pounding. Ben looked at me from the kitchen, eyebrows raised. Sienna was doing homework at the table. She froze at the sound, the same way she froze at the dinner table. I immediately hated that. Go to your room, I told her gently. Put your headphones on. She hesitated. Is it, Grandma? I didn't lie. Yes, I said. But you are safe. Go, she nodded and disappeared down the hall. Ben moved closer to me, quiet support in human form. I opened the door. There they were. Mom and Dad in front, faces tight with outrage and desperation. Katie beside them, jaw set like she had arrived to win. Nick slightly behind, looking exactly like a man who wanted to be anywhere else. Mom shoved words toward me like she could force them inside. Can you at least pay for the birthday? She demanded. Do you know what you did? We were already in debt. We cannot pay anything. How are we supposed to manage? I blinked. You're asking me to pay for a party I wasn't welcome at. Dad tried to soften it. Nora, just help us get through this. My mother cut him off. You have money. You always have money. I almost smiled. It was a reflex. Dry humor is sometimes the only thing standing between you and screaming. Yes, I said. I have money because I work, because Ben works, because we budget. I was paying your bills. Katie stepped forward. This is unfair, she said, like she was announcing a verdict. We have 3 children. I looked at her. Really looked. And that means what? I asked. That I finance your life because you had more kids than I did? Katie's eyes flashed. You're acting like we did something wrong. I laughed quietly. You mean besides excluding my daughter from her grandmother's birthday and pretending it was a rule? Mom snapped. It was adults only. Stop pretending, I said. I leaned against the doorframe. You don't treat me like a daughter, I continued. You don't treat Sienna like a granddaughter. And you still want my money. Dad's face pinched. That's not fair. It's accurate, I said. Mom's voice rose. Family helps family. I nodded slowly. You're right. Family helps family. Family doesn't single out a child and call it a rule. I'm stepping out of the role you assigned me, the one where I pay and smile while my child is treated like she's optional. Nick shifted his weight, eyes focused somewhere above my shoulder like he was watching an invisible clock. Mom pushed forward again. So you're really doing this? You're really cutting us off? Yes, I said. Her eyes narrowed. Over one party. I felt something settle in my chest. It was never one party, I said. It was one party too many. For a moment there was silence. Not peace, not understanding. Just the pause you get when someone realizes their usual leverage is gone. Dad's shoulders sagged slightly, as if he could finally see the situation clearly and hated it. Katie looked furious, but there was something else there too. Fear, maybe. The fear of being next in line to carry the load. Mom stared at me like I was a stranger. Then she did what she always did when she wasn't winning. She turned away. This is unbelievable, she spat. After everything we've done for you. Ben's hand brushed my back, a quiet reminder. You're not alone. I watched them step off the porch one by one. Mom first, dramatic as ever. Dad following like an apology he never quite delivered. Katie stiff and offended. Nick trailing like he had been drafted into a war he did not start. When they reached the driveway, Mom looked back. "You're going to regret this," she said. I didn't respond. I closed the door. My hands trembled for about 10 seconds. Then they stopped. Ben exhaled. "You okay?" I nodded, even though my throat was tight. Sienna's bedroom door opened a crack. Her eyes peeked out, cautious. "It's gone?" she asked. "Yes," I said. They left. She came down the hall slowly, like she was stepping back into a world she wasn't sure was stable. Ben knelt beside her. "You're okay," he said softly. Sienna looked at me. "Are we in trouble?" That question broke something in me. Not the strong part. The old part. The part that remembered being a kid and thinking adults' anger was a law you couldn't escape. I crouched in front of her. "No," I said. "You're not in trouble. None of this is your fault. And I'm not going to let anyone treat you like you don't matter." Sienna swallowed. Then she nodded. And for the first time since that dinner, she looked lighter. 6 months later, our house felt different. Not quieter. Lighter. Sienna started singing again, just under her breath while she did homework. Ben would catch my eye over his coffee like, "See?" And I stopped flinching every time my phone buzzed. We had money again. Real money. When you stop paying someone else's mortgage, you can replace a broken dishwasher without a family summit. The guilt attempts still came. Cousins checking in, family friends not taking sides while absolutely taking sides. I kept my replies short. Sometimes I didn't reply at all. Through the grapevine, I heard the part that mattered. They adjusted. My parents downsized. Mom picked up part-time work. Katie got a proper job. They survived. They always could. They just preferred not to, when I was available. A full year passed with no contact. Then one afternoon my phone rang. "Katie." Sienna was out with a friend. "Good." I answered anyway. "Hey," Katie said. Her voice didn't sound brave. It sounded tired. "Mom's been... a lot." I let the silence do its job. "She's been asking me for help," Katie admitted. "Money, time, everything." Then quieter. "And I didn't realize how much you were doing. Not really." I leaned back in my chair. "And the birthday?" I asked. Katie hesitated. "Yeah," she said. "I get it now. What she said about Sienna, it wasn't right. It didn't erase anything. It didn't fix the past. But it was the closest thing to accountability our family had ever managed. I'm not calling to pull you back in," she added quickly. "I just wanted you to know." "Okay," I said. And for once, that was enough. When I hung up, Ben looked over. "How do you feel?" I didn't have to think. "Steady," I said, because my home was calm. My daughter was safe. And my life no longer depended on earning love from people who treated her like an exception. That was the payoff. That was the point. Do you think grandparents are worth it if they treat one child like an exception? Would you stay no contact or allow contact only with strict rules? Let me know in the comments and subscribe for more stories.